Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wildin' in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gon' be our year. We're here, drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring, yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds and another Royal Rebounds podcast live with Calvin and Barry. Tonight we are breaking down the Sacramento Kings 101-103 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll be talking about some trade news. Tom Brady's retiring. There's a new format for some events at the All-Star game. Kings have been rumored to potentially be interested in guys like Julius Randle. And Buddy Hield could be heading to Cleveland. We'll talk about that and more when we come back with your Kings Nightcap. We're here, we're drinking beers, and we're talking about your Sacramento Kings. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you smash up that like button down below. And if you enjoy fresh Kings content like this and you hate the Kings losing games, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below to join the Royal family. Another tough loss, Calvin. I thought the referees were finally going to help us out. They gave us the 5-second call late in the game.
They did.
Kings have a shot. Tyrese is shooting lights out. He doesn't get the last shot in this game.
No, unfortunate way to end this game. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know what to be more upset about, the way the Kings played, in the 2 or 3 games before this, or the way they played tonight. You look at the stats, and they were up in a lot of categories. They were up by 17 points here at one point. Tyrese Haliburton, career high, 38 points, goes crazy in the fourth quarter. Yet once again, Kings lose because they couldn't find a way to make enough stops in the end. And Joel Embiid, you're welcome. I hope you guys put some money down after my prediction the other day. 30-10 for Joel Embiid. It was like clockwork. Guy was an absolute animal. 18 free throw attempts of the team's 26.
Shaq would be proud.
He would be proud.
What's up, Gothan, Brian, Matthew? I see Mike in here. Fred, John, welcome, everyone. Makami, Kristen, Brandon, thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode. Yeah, it really is a tough loss. De'Aaron Fox is out again with the ankle injury. We saw him warming up last game and was a scratch. I thought he would have been available tonight. Ends up not being available. Davion pushed right into the starting lineup. He played really well. And as you mentioned, career high for Tyrese Haliburton, 38 points tonight. He also had a career high in free throws taken with 12, 11 for 12. And he was shooting lights out. I want to hear from everybody that said he wasn't aggressive and that he's not aggressive enough and he passes the ball too much, because he did not do that tonight. You're just setting
yourself up here because people are going to say they still lost. He wasn't aggressive enough. He needs to shoot more.
Well, they need more help.
He needs to shoot more.
They need more help. Yes. They need either De'Aaron Fox back or they need some return in a De'Aaron Fox trade. Not that I'm advocating for a De'Aaron Fox trade. I'm just saying teams are only as good as the players they have on the court. De'Aaron Fox is a great player. He's not on the court tonight. Kings missed him.
Hey, Monty.
All right, Calvin. Oh, what's up, Pat? Good to see you here as well. And Sean. All right, Calvin, how about let's dive here into the box score, because Tyrese had an incredible game.
He sure did.
And I see everyone here in the chat talking about Buddy Chuckets.
Buddy did not have a very incredible game. 23 minutes off the bench, 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 7 from 3. He did have 8 rebounds somehow, but 3 turnovers, 2 points. Another very, very disappointing game for him and for the bench all around. Obviously Davion Mitchell is not playing off the bench as De'Aaron Fox has been out, and he has played much, much better, especially offensively. But the bench has really taken a big nosedive here over the past couple weeks. Tyrese, as we mentioned, 38 points, career high, 7 assists, 3 steals, 3 rebounds. He did a little bit of everything for them tonight, 11 of 12 at the free throw line, 5 of 9 from 3, incredibly efficient. And again, the Kings just didn't get quite enough help elsewhere. Davion Mitchell adds 15 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and Harrison Barnes continues to play pretty steadily, I would say, as well, without De'Aaron Fox, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and he was 4 of 6 at the free throw line as well.
Only 6 points for Marvin Bagley tonight.
And only 20 minutes played. I'm really not quite sure why the Kings aren't playing him more. I mean, he still is giving them all they need on the rebounds on the glass. 9 rebounds tonight, 3 offensive boards. He was 3 of 6 from the field. I think he looks good. I'm just not sure why he isn't getting 26, 27 minutes a night.
Yeah, it's weird. It is really weird. But, we talked about how this Kings team early on in the season was so deep, right? And we talked about they have 3 basically starting point guards if you consider, Davion a starter at this point. But injuries have taken a toll on this team. We see Terrence Davis has been out now. De'Aaron Fox is out. But, calling up Keita, Damian Jones has been out there more. Metu is more. So you have more of these 4, 5-ish guys that are playing more and more minutes. And I think that's really cutting into Bagley's minutes a lot. But I was surprised, man. We've been talking about Keita.
At the same time, Tristan Thompson hasn't played in I don't know how long. Alex Len really doesn't get that many minutes anymore either.
True.
So to think that Marvin Bagley is still only getting around 20 minutes a game, despite the fact that those other guys really aren't playing much anymore, is just puzzling to me. I don't get it.
And only 1 minute for Keita tonight, which is really, really wild. But we got to see Damian Jones play a little bit more. 19 big minutes for Mo Harkless. We haven't seen him much as of late. And Metu's back and playing well.
Yeah, it made sense to me to see Harkless a lot because the Sixers have a lot of pretty good wings, especially they throw out a bunch in their starting lineup, guys like Thibault and Tobias Harris, obviously, and people like that. So I expected to see Mo Harkless play a little bit more tonight for that wing defense. 0 points in 19 minutes.
I want to hear your thoughts on Buddy Hield. 23 minutes tonight, 1 of 8 from the field, didn't make a 3 even though he shot 7 of them. More turnovers than points.
Well, obviously he played horrible today. There's no sugarcoating that. My opinion still hasn't changed on Buddy Hield in the past multiple years now. I've said for a long time I think that the Kings need to trade him. He could come back their very next game and put he'd be 6 of 14 from 3. He'll have 26 points or something like that. Some people, not most people at this point, I think, but some people will say, oh, well, this is the Buddy Hield we need. And, if he can just keep playing like this, then the Kings will be in a better spot. And while that statement by itself is true, I know what to expect from Buddy Hield at this point. He'll have 3 or 4 good games in a row, and then he'll come right back with 6 or 7 games that are either mediocre at best or they're awful like this. He's not good with the ball in his hands when he has to put it on the floor. His really only weapon out there is his outside shooting, which in the NBA is a very important weapon to have, especially when you're one of the top 3-point shooters in the league. But if you're so inconsistent, you're a liability on defense, and the team doesn't really seem to count on you that much. I mean, when he takes a bad shot or he makes a bad decision with the basketball and turns it over, you see multiple players and coaches on this team visibly sick almost to their stomach. Oh, man, here we go again.
Yep.
I can't believe he made that decision again. I can't believe he took that shot at that time. Even if he's hit 3 or 4 in a row, it's just you can never really predict what you're going to get out of him.
Yep.
So the Kings need to trade him ASAP.
It's tough. We talk about his struggles handling the basketball, right? And since the injuries to Terrence Davis and De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell is now a starter or temporary starter. So Buddy Hield is really the main ball handler off the bench for this team, and we saw it tonight with the turnovers. But I want to take a step back and look at his last few games. So his last good game, in my opinion, was January 16th against Houston. 27 points, as you mentioned. He can go off any given night, but the thing that makes the difference between a good player and a great player is consistency, right? So 27 points, 5 of 9 from three-point range. Since then, 2 points against the Pistons, 6 against the Bucks, 11 against the Celtics, 8 against the Hawks, 2 against the Sixers. The Kings usually win, or they have a really good chance at winning when he plays well. But when he doesn't play well, the Kings really struggle. This is 6 losses in a row for Sacramento, and it basically coincides with these games for him. Another thing that you mentioned was 8 rebounds tonight, which we don't normally expect from Buddy. But looking here at the last 4 games, 3 out of those 4, he had 8 rebounds. I like that he's crashing the glass a little bit more. You know, he's trying to do other things when you're not shooting well. You know, shooting's not the only thing on the basketball court, right? So when you're not shooting well, you try and do other things, getting guys involved, stuff like that to make up for your lack of shooting. Maybe he's crashing the glass more, but it's not enough.
No, it's not enough. And it also, a lot of those could be that he just happened to be in the right place because he was out of position on defense too to get the rebound. But even if he is rebounding more, I mean, this team needs him for one thing, and that's outside shooting. And he's just flat out not consistent enough at doing that, like you mentioned. Buddy Hield is the exact type of player that a contending team needs. If this Kings team was a winning team, if they were a playoff-ready team, if they had the right roster makeup to be a team that would win more games than they lost, then Buddy Hield would be a great fit for them coming off the bench with that potential, explosion of outside shooting that you could get from him at any time. And he's also going to get better shots on that team too, right? Mm-hmm. When this team struggles to score, they look for him to get it going. The other team automatically knows what Sacramento's trying to do. They're trying to get Buddy Hield free for an outside shot, and they take that away more often than not. Whereas if you were on a contending team that had multiple scoring options, whether it's creating their own shot or dishing to somebody wide open in the corner for a 3, mm-hmm. he would get better looks, and he would probably shoot a better percentage overall because he wouldn't have to force up these ridiculous. I mean, he might still force up some crazy shots, but he wouldn't be in a position where he had to do that more often than not. So for that reason, I still think there are a lot of teams that are going to want him because of that. Contending teams are always looking for more shooting, and they're not looking for a guy that they need to rely on to come in and score 20, 25 points. So he does fit a lot of teams' needs out there. I think he can still be traded for a reasonable package, but the Kings, he does not service them well at all.
Yeah, and it's also hard to get traded to a contender when you make $20 million.
That too.
That doesn't really help very much. And, we hear about the Lakers' interest in Buddy Hield, and we'll talk about that in the next section. But if I'm the Lakers, I already have Malik Monk, who's a better version a better and cheaper version and a younger version of Buddy Hield. But, the struggles continue for Buddy. It's really, really unfortunate for this team. Because as we've seen over the past couple years, the team has gone the way of Buddy Hield. He's the longest tenured player on this Kings roster. Nobody has been in Sacramento longer than Buddy Hield at this point, which is pretty wild. I know we could, do the comparison of who won the Cousins trade. Cousins got injured, all this stuff. He's not with New Orleans anymore. Buddy Hield is still in Sacramento, but he's overpaid and he's not performing well. So for me, that's a wash.
Yeah.
Might even favor New Orleans. Anything that stuck out for you in the team stats tonight? I know you mentioned the Kings turned Philadelphia over a lot. They just weren't able to take advantage of that.
They did. I mean, what stands out to me in all these team stats is that the Kings outplayed Philadelphia in many areas of this game. They out-rebounded them. The assists were even. As you mentioned, the turnovers were in Sacramento's favor. Free throw percentage was in Sacramento's favor. They had a 17-point lead. So then you're looking at this like, well, how did the Kings lose this game? You don't play defense.
Yep.
Philadelphia shoots 51% from the field and 40% from three. In a tight game, if you don't make it hard on the other team to score, especially late, Philadelphia turns up their defensive pressure. The Kings have a great first half, but they only managed to score 18 points in the fourth quarter, and most of them was for Tyrese Haliburton.
You think Monty and Daryl had a bet on this game? Monty's traveling with the team. You think it's like, well, if the Kings win, we'll do this deal. If Philadelphia wins, I mean, if I'm Monty, I'm not betting on the Kings against Philadelphia because Philadelphia is obviously a much better team. But we know those guys are friends. We know they're close. It may not seem like it at this moment because we're hearing about all this trade drama back and forth. But those guys worked really, really closely together for like 13 years in Houston. So they have to have a pretty decent relationship. But I want to hear your take on Rashaan Holmes. He's really struggled since he's come back from COVID and the eye injuries. He's wearing, the goggles now. 31 minutes for him tonight. Only 10 points, 9 rebounds. He shot well, 4 of 6 from the field, made all his free throws. But it's kind of in the same situation as Marvin Bagley, right? As they're just not giving him enough opportunities. Normally, Tyrese is this guy that just loves to pass up the ball and feed the big man. Tonight, he took it in his own hands. Is there a balance here, or how are you feeling about Rashaan?
There's definitely a balance. I think Rashaan is still, unfortunately, kind of working his way back into, 100% playing shape, whether that's recovering from the injuries or just when you miss as much time as he has, timing and endurance and stamina and all that stuff, they can kind of take a while to come back to you all the way. But Rashaan is a player, at least offensively, that is completely dependent on the guards he plays with. He has a nice, 15-foot push shot, but even that shot he doesn't create on his own, right? He ends up receiving a pass because his man is going over to double somebody penetrating into the key or the paint, and he gets wide open from that free throw line area. So, I still think that he looks to me about the same as he did last year. He's just, because of all the games that he's missed and the constant in and out of the lineup with not just him, but a lot of players on this team, it's taken him a lot longer, or we're still waiting to see him get to that total, whatever you want to call it, his ceiling for this season or whatever it would be. I like Rashaan a lot as a player, but I think this year has made me kind of realize that he maybe doesn't have quite as high a ceiling as I thought he did originally. I don't think that he's done improving his game overall as a basketball player, but the question is how much better can he actually get? As I mentioned, he's so dependent to score based off of other players around him, and you can make that case for a lot of centers in the league. Clint Capella is one guy that comes to mind right away, but he doesn't have the size that Capella has. He's not as good of a rim protector as Capella is. So I like Rashaan, but I'm starting to worry whether or not that's the long-term answer at the center position for this team.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like when they got him the ball in that spot, that push shot was automatic.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen that over the past couple months. And it seems like he's been a little reluctant to take that shot, honestly. But he needs to develop some post moves because, as you mentioned, he's only able to get a shot off if he's open or if someone else sets him up.
Right.
And that makes it really tough on everybody else on the team.
It does.
And he doesn't space the floor.
And if you're somebody like Rudy Gobert or one of these other, huge centers that provide so much else on the floor, rim protection, blocking shots, rebounds, all that good stuff, then, it doesn't matter if you only score 2 or 4 points for a week straight or whatever the case may be, because you're still affecting the game in so many other ways. But Rashaan's problem is he doesn't always have those types of games. He can come out and have a game where he has 3-4 blocks in a game, but it's not something that you would expect from him, or, it would be a really stellar performance if he does come out and do that. And then you couple the fact with he has to go against all these guys too. That takes away from some of his production offensively when you're banging inside with the Embiids and the Goberts and the Jokic's all the time.
Yeah, speaking of blocks, only 2 blocks tonight for Sacramento. 1 for Bagley, 1 for Jones, 3 steals for Haliburton, 1 for Davion Mitchell, and a couple off the bench. I like to see a little bit more of that. The Kings did win the turnover battle tonight, but it didn't help them. And 18 points in the fourth quarter doesn't do it.
No, it
does not do it at all. Does not do it at all for Sacramento. Anybody else you want to talk about here before we move on?
For Sacramento or for Philadelphia?
Hey, either. You want to shout out some Philly guys? That's totally cool.
Well,
with me.
I'm gonna shout out Joel Embiid. I think he should win MVP this year with the season that he's had. He's one of my favorite players. I still think he's somewhat a little underappreciated as far as the whole league goes. And just everything that he's done this year with all the Ben Simmons drama and all that stuff to keep Philadelphia in a playoff spot. And he's having a historic season number-wise down in Philadelphia. I think he's scored the most 30-point games in one stretch since Allen Iverson did back in the early 2000s or 90s. So he's really dominating at a very, very high level. Wish that the Kings had a player like that.
Is he putting more pressure on Philadelphia to make a trade for Ben Simmons or no?
Well, it's hard to say. I think you could look at that from either direction, but probably seems like less pressure now. I mean, I think if the Sixers had come out and just lost a crap ton of games right from the beginning and were never really in contention, I mean, they were like the 1 or the 2 seed for the first month of the season in the East. But if it had been the inverse of that, where they were down, at the bottom of the conference, then I think you probably would have seen Daryl Morey with maybe a little bit more urgency to trade Ben Simmons. But the way that he's playing, and certainly Tyrese Maxey has definitely helped them out a lot.
Yes, he has.
As well in his development.
Yes, he has. I want to talk about Fox real quick before we move on. Fox is out again. I think this is, 3 games in a row for him missed due to that ankle injury, warming up for a game. A lot of rumors swirling about potential trades. I know the Kings last week came out and said, we're not trading Fox, we're not trading Haliburton, we're keeping these guys. But it seems a little weird for me that he's just not really been playing. We haven't really heard many updates. We thought he was going to play today, kind of a late scratch. If you look at the big picture here, Sacramento's been interested in Ben Simmons all year long, right? Ben Simmons is refusing to play for Philadelphia. Yet the Kings are still very, very interested in him. Does this send the wrong message to De'Aaron Fox? Is De'Aaron Fox looking at this like, well, Ben's not happy, so he's just not playing where he is? I'm not saying that De'Aaron Fox is purposely sitting out games, but I'm just wondering how this affects him mentally when you're like, this guy's not happy where he's at, so he's refusing to play games, and my team actually wants him.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, I feel like if you're any player in this league, you can have one of those moments where you look at another guy on another team and either draw comparisons to what your situation is, or, he could certainly feel any type of way about this. But all I'll say is with every game that he misses, I become more and more nervous about this situation. Nervous for a few reasons. If they really are planning on trading him, and they're just trying to keep him off the court so he doesn't further injure his ankle or anything else, and that's the whole reason that you're not playing right now, it better be worth it. That's all I can say. There better be a substantial deal coming back in return for trading De'Aaron Fox. And if that's not the case, that's even more concerning, because now we're talking about a guy who, sure, his ankle probably does hurt a little bit, but how bad is it? You probably can.
Everybody's
play through
hurt at this point.
And the fact that you're now choosing not to play, that's a very worrisome situation, I think, for the Sacramento Kings.
Yep. Let's jump into your keys for this game, and then we'll move on to Around the Crown and talk about some trades and some other news here.
Well, key number one was just to get out to a good start and go from there. You know, after you've taken as many beatings as the Kings have, you just kind of have to get back to square one and come out with the right type of energy and get off to a good start. And they did that. They had not only a good first quarter, but they had a good first half. Took a lead going into halftime. As is the story with Sacramento, it's not always how you start, it's how you finish, and they didn't finish the right way today. Number two was all about Embiid. They just had to double him and try to make it as difficult as they could on him. Guy's a great player. Great players put up great numbers on a nightly basis, and he had another fantastic game today. And then number three was show some fight. Again, you know, you get your ass kicked enough times, you have to kind of remind yourself that you can play this game too, and that you have to be able to go out there and grab the bull by the horns and sit down in your defensive stance and make some stops, show some fight. And for the most part, I would say they did that today as well. Tyrese had a huge bounce back game. They only gave up 103 points, which for the Kings is like giving up 60, I would say. And then, they had good offensive performances here and there as well. They just didn't do quite enough to get the win.
Yep. Another loss, guys. Start getting used to this stuff, because they're coming in hot now. They are. And every single one of these losses is going to continue to compound and pile on top of each other. You look at the standings and you're like, oh, we're not that far away from the 10th seed. We could probably make the play-in. But is it really worth it at this point to get smoked in the play-in game? I mean, the Kings need to win some games here. Yes, they do. But the bigger picture, in my opinion, is pretty important. And that's they need to make some moves. They need to get a dog on this team. They need some leadership. They need to make a bunch of changes. But cheers, Patrick. Cheers, everyone. We're going to take another quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to jump a little bit deeper into your Sacramento Kings with Around the Crown.